Oh, testing mic. Okay, good. Hello. Okay, so I started this essay yesterday. It's about FI and privacy. It is exploratory writing, and I thought it was kind of important, so I was going to write more about it today. I was going to try to write something about how you should think about privacy or deal with privacy if you're a new person, or just anyone. There's more of an issue with new people who aren't used to the culture and what other people post and so on. When I first found TCS, I read the list for a month, and then I started posting frequently. And I find most people, they never post much, or they post right away. But I don't see very many people who wait 1 month and then post a lot to learn what it's like, and then they start doing a lot, you know? That seems kind of bad. It seems like maybe the majority of people should do that. It seems good in general to get a feel for the group and then participate a bunch rather than as only immediate or nothing ever. It reminds me of people should be able to reply to stuff a week later. Most people, it's they reply immediately or very soon, or they reply never. So there isn't a medium where they reply after a week or two. Usually with people, if they're not posting a bunch right away, then they never post much. And if they're not replying to a post within 24 hours, then they're unlikely to ever reply. And that's one of the things they want privacy about, is what they're doing. Are they going to reply later? They don't tell you. They don't say, oh, I'm done with this thread, I'm not going to reply more. They leave it ambiguous. They don't, often it's not actually a privacy issue, it's that they don't figure out in their own mind whether or not they're going to reply later. They don't plan, or if they do plan, it's often unrealistic and they just don't know much about themselves. They're not good at introspection. You see people who say, I'm going to reply later, and then they don't. They don't really take responsibility for following through on their word, and they didn't take steps to ensure they would reply later, like putting automated notifications on their calendar. And they also didn't seriously, it's not a good prediction. They're not have I said I will reply later and then replied later over 90% of the time, and I've done that a bunch of times and I have a track record, you know? I can say I'll reply later in a week, and I actually do. I have a track record of that. It's worked many, many times. But most people's track record is that it usually doesn't work, and then they keep saying they'll do it with new things, and it keeps not working. And then they keep saying it, which is not honest. If it hasn't worked most of the time, if your success rate is under half, you shouldn't keep making promises to people. Or if not promises, saying you'll do things, your word. It's not quite a promise, but it's something. Anyway. Yeah, this shit's important. So people are confused about what is personal or private, or if not confused, disagree with FI about it. And they don't understand that things like what is private are disagreements, or what should be private are disagreements that can be discussed rationally and critically in truth-seeking ways. And that they can be curious. Someone thinks I should share this info, I don't want to share it. Why do they think I should share it? Why do they think that's a good idea? Do they know something I don't know? You can ask, you can be curious, instead of just assuming that they're wrong and stupid, and the problem is they have incomplete information. When you think the problem is someone has incomplete information, you're thinking they're wrong. You're thinking they have bad judgment. There is a disagreement there. Because they thought they had enough information to say whatever they said. So if they're wrong, they made a mistake. And you shouldn't just assume they're mistaken, because maybe you're mistaken. Maybe they know what they're talking about in some way that you didn't expect. Maybe they have information you didn't realize they have, or maybe they have methods of analysis that use less information than you would need. Like maybe they can analyze in a more information efficient way than you. They might know some way to do that. Especially if you're not like an expert analyst. Because like if you're one of the best, you can be like, well, I know all the tricks. It'd be like really fucking amazing if someone actually could analyze with way less information than I would need when I'm like, if you can outcompete 90% of people easily, and you're like way better than them and use way less information than them. So you get that kind of complaint that you're using too little information. People assume you couldn't do it, and you can. If you're that kind of person, and then someone has way less info than you would need, so it's like you need 10% of of the normal amount of info, but then this person is making conclusions with 10% of the info you have. So it's like 1% of the normal info. Then you could be pretty skeptical, but you could still ask. But the people who make this kind of complaint, usually their level of analysis is just at the normal level. Like they don't have any special skill at it. So why would they think they're never going to run into someone who's better at it than them when they're not especially great at it? I think a lot of people, it just doesn't even occur to them that there might be ways of analyzing something with less information. That you can piece things together with fewer clues. Like if you put it that way, that sounds obvious, and they'd probably realize it. But like, I don't think people necessarily realize that applies to analyzing information from emails. Oh yeah, so this is important too, because people frequently they don't want to talk about their goals. They don't want to talk about like the planning phase where they decide what projects to take on and why those over other ones. But then they want help with those projects. They're leaving you out of phase one of the project, where they choose that project and they plan how they're going to approach it and stuff. But then they want you to help with the project. But if they're not going to let you participate in phase one of the project, it's kind of unreasonable to expect you to help with phase two when it looks to you like phase one may have been done incorrectly and may not be something you agree with. But they do that all the time. Right, so a lot of people, they don't want to discuss the planning phase because none of their discussions reach conclusions. So if they discuss the planning phase, they'll just only discuss the planning phase. They'll never move on to part two. The problem there is not discussing the planning phase. The problem there is like, well, the bot took 9 minutes. Well, in the scheme of things, 9 minutes is not necessarily that big of a deal. Like, if my typical stream is like 3 hours. Also, if people actually care, they should get YouTube notification emails. I think those are more prompt, although I'm not that sure. Justin, do you know how prompt it is for YouTube to email you that the stream started? Yeah, I'm not planning to get the new iPhone. It seemed very camera focused as far as the upgrade went. I'm glad I got the iPhone X. I really like it, and I have not cared about the upgrade since then, but I thought it was a big upgrade. Also, I went from 6S to the X, so it's a good like speed upgrade and stuff too. Because the people who made the bot didn't make it very fast. That's really all I can tell you. It's made by Zapier. I haven't paid them money, but I don't think that that's relevant. And I'm kind of disinclined to pay them money for their service given how slow it is. Like that encourages me to find a different service if I cared that much. But I don't think it's a free tier issue. I don't remember any advertising about actually deliver your notifications on time if you pay them money. Maybe a lot of people's use cases don't care. Like a lot of stuff might be on a schedule. Or like if you're announcing a video that's already finished, you wouldn't really care that much about like a 10-minute delay. But for live streams, you would care some. Okay, so I guess you can also discuss a hypothetical scenario that someone else made up. What should I write? Oh, 921 words. Well, I'm 80 words from my goal. Okay, I might come back to this, I might not. I'm not sure. That's a lot of grammar. Alright, well, not gonna worry about this post. Oh, Ella hasn't posted again. I wonder why. She did not explain. Maybe she's busy. Crit Rat, like, said he was leaving and flamed me as an autistic cult leader, which, by the way, have you ever heard of an autistic cult leader? Like, cult leaders are supposed to be charismatic. That's how they get a cult following. That's part of what they do. So, like, who wants to follow an autistic guy around? So, yeah. I don't think he thought through his insults. Anyways, so he, like, openly, was hateful and left or whatever. Ella just hasn't talked. But yeah, this comment was particularly stupid. He, like, didn't read what was written to him, which he also did not quote. Because it specifically said, God, I'm gonna find it. I want to show this because it's ridiculous. He doesn't pay any attention. Um, Let me switch clients. We're doing a search. This doesn't have anything private in it, so I can search here. Okay, Protagoras. Did I spell that right? I don't know why I got so many beach balls. Okay. So I posted. See this. It says we have quotations of him and of his ipsissima verba, meaning actual words as opposed to paraphrases. The most famous is the homo mensura, man measure statement. So we have the actual quote. It says right here, like I was correcting him, I said he misquoted and I gave sources and details. And they clearly state that we have an actual quote. And the response is, I doubt we have an actual quote. As far as I know, we don't have one. It's like, I just fucking quoted that we do have the exact quote, and what you posted is not an accurate translation. It's not the right quote. Because he posted, man is the measure of all things, which is just not what it was. The quote is something like, of all things the measure is man, of the things that are, that they are, and of the things that are not, that they are not. Anyways, their translations differ, but all the translations are something like this, because this is the actual quote. This is like a major change, this is not just a minor translation difference. Like, this translation has a dash and a semicolon in it, that's like a minor, it's a punctuation change, but the wording looks the same. But then, this translation, they say that the that could be how, so you could translate it either way. They're saying there's an option, and then they do that again. So there's like a a potential translation difference there, where you could say how they are instead of that they are, and you could say how they are not instead of that they are not. So there's like minor translation differences, but this is like a major difference. He's just changing the sentence and like leaving half of it out. Oh, this one doesn't have a sentence translation in it, but it was relevant to the discussion. Anyways, so right, he posted this misquote, and we have ipsissima ipsissima verba. Ipsissima. Yeah, ipsissima verba. We have actual words, quotes, not paraphrases. And he just says, I don't think we have an exact quote. Yes, we do. And I just told you that. And his response was to delete everything I said, then respond with no context, and just say this ridiculous thing contradicting the information he was just given. Wait, he claims inexact quoting. Oh, so actually I saw something about this because I think I saw something saying there were multiple sources on the quoting and that they agreed. That like it wasn't word for word exact, but it was like very close. So like, the kind of difference between that and how we don't have exactness on, but the difference between does this entire part of the sentence exist in the quote or not? We do know that. But yes, we have quotes, which are considered by scholars to be his actual words, not paraphrases. And he says it's quibbling about the exactness, but it wasn't the exactness, it was that he left out half of the sentence. You know? It's not that he like the thing I was quibbling about was not that the word order was changed from of all things the measure is man to man is the measure of all things. Like that word order is partly like a translation issue. Um so it was like a minor thing like that, I wouldn't have quibbled over it, but he just left out fucking three different sections of a 4-section sentence. So that's a major change. So if you're trying to do serious analysis, it's worth being aware of what the sentence actually was. This leaves out like significant information, all of this information. But as he was already told in the first reply he got, that discussion is not useful or interesting or productive without additional information because this is such a short, vague thing, it is ambiguous. The only thing you can really say about this is it's highly ambiguous about what it means. And he was just not willing to listen to that point. But yeah, this partial sentence is not in fact self-explanatory. If you want to analyze it, you have to consider things like how Plato presented it, which gives you some context about what it means, and then you get some actual info to go on. But he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to look at the full sentence or the context in which it was quoted or what people at the time thought it meant or anything like that, which would give you enough information to actually figure out what he's talking about. But just by itself, this is so little info, man. Like, what does that mean? You legit cannot tell what it means without extra info. But he did not want to discuss that. He did not want to argue that it does have adequate information. When he was told that it was ambiguous, he just yelled at the person, essentially. Alright, so that was that. Let's get... A similar thought is ambiguous. Do you mean you've thought that someone was an autistic cult leader? Or you mean you thought that it was, like a kind of contradictory insult? Here it is. I guess I'll read Kate's first. Yeah, I think I read some of this and I wasn't that interested in it. I thought the Jung stuff was like vague and just not very useful. So far, this quote is not relevant to what he says it's going to irrelevant to. It's like, we'll see, but I'm skeptical that he quoted very well. Because now it goes also, so it's like making a separate point. So that you would expect the first point before the also to be relevant like on its own, and it's not. He's quoting like a half sentence out of context. Wait, is it not even a fucking quote? It is in fact a misquote. Fuck. The is like relevant to the meaning. Like I think he misquoted it because he misread it, I guess. Because if he quoted it as pretending and the evading of their flaws, then you couldn't group pretending with the evading. Although if he quoted the pretending and the evading, then it would look like they were grouped again. But pretending of flaws doesn't make sense. You can't pretend of a flaw. So it makes way more sense to just read pretending as standing on its own with no modifier. Because it makes reasonable sense that way. There's nothing wrong with what Kate wrote if you read it the other way. In general, like this construction where we have like x and y and then a modifier is grammatically it's ambiguous whether the modifier applies to both or just the one that it's directly next to. Like the grammar doesn't tell you for sure if of their flaws applies to pretending or not. But if you just think about it for a moment, can you pretending of their flaws? That's incoherent, therefore you shouldn't read it that way. Anyway. Is it a quote of Jung? Like 50% chance? Like I can't fucking trust that this is actually a quote of Jung from this guy. That's one of the reasons you shouldn't quote incorrectly. Like I have to look it up or just not put it in my mind as a Jung quote. He is no hero who never met the dragon. Okay, it's unclear how this actually is relevant to what he was saying. The relevant part is, oh, okay. He is no hero who never met the dragon, or who, if that's just saying if you are an evader, you're not a hero. That doesn't give you shit about how to deal with evasion or how to recognize it. It's not useful. It's just like a vague metaphor that's in the same ballpark. You didn't account for it. Like, I don't know. I just don't see the value in what Jung said. But I don't want to spend more time on this. Yeah, I agree with this. Like, I haven't read the sentence, but it makes sense to me for duty to modify accord, not in accord. It tells you the type of accord. Like, do prepositional phrases even receive modifiers? Like, prepositional phrases as a whole? I mean, I guess they can. You could say, like, a lot in accord. Is that... But I think it's, like, uncommon that a prepositional phrase as a whole gets a modifier. And I think with duty modifying accord makes sense. This sentence is particularly hard. I haven't tried it. If you do try it, you should be able to do something. Like you could write down the part of speech of everything, and you could write down some of the groupings, at least. Oh, now Justin's trying it. Okay, well this one I'm saving for later, because I'm interested in that sentence. But right now I just want to go through a bunch of stuff really fast, I think. These are all that sentence. Oh, Kate is doing the, there's a word for this, I forgot, there's a name for these diagrams, but I forgot what it was. But yeah, these diagrams are like conceptually inferior. They're not as well organized, they're more parochial. They're okay, like, they're not terrible, but they're inferior to tree diagrams for actually showing what's going on and conceptually understanding how things work. Yeah, but what's unwieldy or what's awkward in regular terms is different than how grammar works. To some extent. Like those don't always match. Is there an author search? I actually was curious what products Harry Binswanger has. I want dates though. What date did he make this? I want to know if he has old products. It looks like there are a bunch by him. A lot of the Peacock products have dates on them. This is something that I suspect is like recent, but I don't know. Let's see if it has info. No info. I think it's really bad that they don't say the year that these things are from. They have so much funding and shit. What are they doing? This one has it. This was recorded on 2001. Oh god, this is what he said right after September 11. Maybe it's okay. I was worried he would say something like really bad right after it. The media certainly uttered more than a single word of tribute. That's not true. Like yes, the media said a lot of things that were bad, and you could criticize them overall, but there were certainly tributes mixed in. Okay, this actually looks totally reasonable. No complaints. This is probably recent, but it doesn't say. Do the photos tell you much? Like maybe this one's from like 2001 era, because this one's 2001 era and this photo's the same photo. So maybe. This is not Rand's own opinion. She thought she was particularly honest, and that the honesty was more important than any alleged genius. So I think it's a bad sign that this is contradicting Rand's own account. Anyway, so there are tons of these, but there doesn't seem to be information about which ones are old. But with Peacock, you can get stuff from like the 70s or like really old shit. Or not 70s, 80s? Yeah, 80s. Like 80s and early 90s. Anyway, I'll probably buy this later. But I fear that it's recent. Basically, the older it is, the more chance it's good. With these people. Because they were like more influenced by Rand, and then like when it got the more time they had on their own without Rand correcting them on stuff, the worse they got. These ones have some dates, but they're recent. I don't really want to buy anything from Binswanger from like after 2000. As like a rough rule of thumb. And certainly not after like 2010. Like this, there's no way. But like these ones from like before 2005 on politics might be pretty good. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like it could go either way. Because he's like straight up politics a lot now, but these people used to be better at it. Anyway. Oh wait, I already left the Kate one. Okay, that one should be red. Yeah, so I think I've lost interest in going through the grammar stuff in nearly as much detail. If someone wants me to review their grammar stuff in detail, they can hire me, by the way. They seem to be doing fine that like other people are discussing it, so it's not like one person is posting by themselves. Alright, I might read that one later. Yeah, I think this is correct. I agree. But not discussing Artero, not discussing speedrunning, not discussing programming. You should discuss these some. Say what you're doing, ask for criticism, etc. It shouldn't be that hard to start. Like you could ask, how do you divide something up into steps? how do you figure out what's skippable or not? Because you can't cover like every little tiny detail. You have to make choices about what's important enough to merit attention. I don't know why people get stuck at the beginning and have like no question. I guess I'll respond. Okay. You did not think I was an autistic cult leader yourself. So it's kind of, I thought it might go the other way because you said good point. You're saying like good point, you had the same thought I had. Usually when you say good point, it's like because it was new to you. Oh, here's that link. This I already knew. I didn't mean I didn't mean like the second one to summarize the first one or whatever. The second one was just like one example. Anyway, this is as far as I've read in this post before. I think I'm gonna keep going for the moment. I think I was at 60 unread posts earlier. Oh, if you want something like that, Kyle, what I recommend is Understanding Objectivism. So there's this book, Understanding Objectivism, but also, this book is based on Peikoff's audio, which is what I actually listen to. So if you go to peikoff.com and go to courses and lectures, and Understanding Objectivism, you can buy the audio recordings of these lectures. You click on MP3 and it'll take you to the store, and it's $23 and 26 hours. And anyways, I liked this. So there's also the book version. Why is it e-textbook instead of just like regular Kindle? I don't know what that means. Alright, Kate already knows this book, but yeah, this is what I would start with for that type of material. Oh, I see what you mean. Right, your parents don't know that you're into objectivism stuff. You could probably pirate the book if you wanted to, because pain's awkward. For the bin swinger one, I'll go back to it after this email. Oh yeah, for the bin swinger one, Kate included this like outline of what's in it, so you could read that to see how interested you were. So I was just gonna give you the link to her post. I think I got a period on the end and it's not gonna work. Yeah. Try it without that period. Oh, go to site. Oh, so that was actually unrelated, but it may have, the first one might have been broken. Anyway, yeah, there it is. Mark that red, unread. And this is Taggart terminal sentence again. Oh, and this is a tangent of it. Is this it as well? It is. Okay, so they actually have a million posts about the Taggart terminal thing. What about this one? Alright, now we got something different. This one looks interesting, I'm gonna read it. Based on like the subject line rather than it being an exercise. Oh, I see. Okay, women having the vote. This one reads as awkward to me. This one reads good to me. Well, this one means like having the vote women, having the vote as an adjective. Like having the vote women share power with men. But what I would say more naturally is women who have the vote share power with men, or women that have the vote, or something. Or women having the vote results in them sharing power with men. So I don't like this. Not saying it's wrong, it's just, I think it's uncommon. Anyway, so this one, I think the fused participle name is like a major hint about what Peikoff thinks is wrong with it. So he's saying that it's, I think, involves a participle and a gerund, and that the author like hasn't made up their mind. He's sort of mixing the two things together. I think that's what fused means. So it's a participle in that having the vote is a modifier of women, but then he's also seeing it as like a gerund in that this whole thing is being treated as a noun, which is the subject of a sentence, but it's a participle, not a gerund, so it should be an adjective, not a noun. But as I see it, it's like, right, and it can't be women reduces men's power with this modifier. See, if this is just like an adjective that modifies women, then what you get is the sentence women reduces men's power plus like a modifier in women. So it'd be sort of like black women reduces men's power, or white women, or whatever, you know, like a regular adjective. Whereas, see, with this one, it's women share power with men. You can actually delete the modifier and it still is coherent. You know, it changes the meaning because you're removing content, but you get a coherent meaning with the modifier removed. So Peikoff thinks the error here is basically if you remove this adjective, you got an incoherent sentence. And I agree with him that as a participle, this doesn't work. However, it seems okay to me as like a noun phrase. So I read it as having as a gerund, it's a noun. The vote is the object of having, so this is a noun. Having the vote reduces men's power, which reads as a perfectly good sentence, except that, well, like, sort of a good sentence. You know what I mean? Like, it's, this is the subject. Having is the subject, just like this one. Having is the subject and women's is a modifier. Here, having is the subject. The fact that there's the vote object is okay. So having is the subject, but then instead of women's as a modifier, what we have is women as a subject of having, which I think is okay. It's possible I'm wrong and it's just you're not supposed to do that, but it seems okay to me to have women as subject of having. I think that verbals can have subjects, so that's my opinion, is it's okay. But I agree that as a participle it would be wrong. The only way you can read this and have it be correct is if women is the subject of having, just like the vote is the object of having. And it is therefore a gerund clause, women having the vote, which has a subject, a non-finite verb, and an object. And then that whole thing, being a gerund, is a noun, which is the subject of reduces. Women is the subject of having, and yeah, so Anne is analyzing it the same way. We've talked about similar stuff before, we had like some lengthy discussions about subjects of non-finite verbs. So it's not surprising that she reads it the same way I did. Okay, I was right based on a subject line and like a very quick glance that was one that interested me and that I wanted to actually read. Whereas this one I'm just gonna skim, I don't care. What's this? Is this the terminal again? Oh, this is from Justin. What happens if I hit reply to this? Yeah, it says from Justin. Yeah. I received the Yahoo group version first, and so the author name is fucked up. Alright, Justin is posting this. This is from May. So Justin's catching up on some older thing. The definitions I looked for clever at talk. I think there's a typo here. Yeah, there must be a typo here. I think the at is in the wrong place. I think it means the definitions I looked at for clever talk about stuff. So this word just needs to move 2 words to the left. Oh, yeah, I agree with this. I vaguely remember this. This is a typo. Thing should be think. G and K are, they have 2 whole letters in between them. So that seems like a mental typo more than a physical typo, which is a thing I do too. But I think typo categories are kind of notable. Like if it's actually an adjacent letter, sometimes it's a physical thing where you like fat fingered it. But in this case, I think it was like somehow your brain typed the wrong word, but you actually hit the letters that you were trying to hit subconsciously. Okay, I didn't read this very quickly. It seemed okay. I mean, I read it quickly. I didn't pay much attention. It seemed okay as an impression. This makes sense to me, this claim. I think that Justin and Anne have gotten significantly better at this. I hope it'll have some carryover to to other discussions on other topics, and they'll be able to discuss in a more like careful, precise, thoughtful way where they're like more analytic or something. Whether the critical rat guy was like complaining that Anne was studying grammar for years and he doesn't want to do like preliminaries for so long. And first of all, she's been studying grammar for like 3 months. I don't know, that's an estimate, but it's not years. And second of all, um, I have no objection to her moving on. Like she's choosing to study grammar more, which is totally fine. I don't object to that either. But if she decided, I've learned a bunch about grammar, I think I finished the project, I would say, okay, that's reasonable. I think you actually accomplished something, and you've gotten far enough along. You didn't just get stuck at the beginning. You learned about it. It seems good. It looks to me like an adequately complete project to stop if she wanted to. I think she might be adding more to it because she's like having a good time because she's been successful at it. So it's like this is going well. She wants to do more of the thing that's working, which is fine. That's one of the advantages of doing something that's not so hard and that you can actually succeed at. I think it's good that she's having success at something and gets more of a feel for what that's like. And then when she doesn't have success at something, maybe she'll be able to compare and be like, see the difference more and like recognize how it's going differently or something. And like what success looks like, what it takes, what quality standards she can have. One of the things with success like this is she can like raise her quality standards and realize she can actually do high quality stuff, and have some practice with that. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, similar stuff with Justin. That I was talking to Anne, but it goes either way. Okay, Justin thinks my point was important. I will now reread my point that I wrote a few months ago. This is from May, so maybe 3 months was an underestimate. Because I think at the time that I wrote this, Anne would already have started working on grammar. So you'd have like May, June, July, August, September. So maybe 4 months is a better estimate. If she started on like May 14, then that'd be 4 months. I think this was like near the beginning. Could be a little more than that. I don't know. Anyway. Right. If you're told it's a red car, you don't know what shade of red. You only have partial information. Right. The red parts are not a uniform color, and then there's like black tires and so on. And that's based on cultural rules, where we consider the car to be like the color of the door panels and the hood and so on, the roof, rather than the wheel color. And those cultural rules are not 100% perfect or exact or precise. There's some ambiguity in them sometimes. So you don't have complete information. Yeah, I agree. That was a good point I made. I agree with this. Alyssa started working on the grammar stuff, but then stopped. I'm not exactly sure why, but I don't think he had a lot of success with it. Maybe some, I don't know, but it's not the same as like Justin and Anne, who like took the project and ran with it and got pretty far with it. Okay, and then this was a good post. I already read this one today. This text was pretty good. Like, this is a reasonable intro. I think it's good for other people besides me to write introductory text. I want to, like, flag this somehow. I think that this will not be as effective as Anne is hoping. Like, people have been told similar things, and they just say, yeah, that makes sense, and it makes sense to them in abstract, and then they feel insulted by something, and then they just forget this. Or they think, oh, you couldn't possibly have meant that. That's ridiculous. Or maybe this will help someone. I'm just gonna put, oh, never mind. Way too long. Well, you can have a link to the post. There. Now people can find the post. Okay, we'll go back to date received and then sort by unread. And now all the unreads are grouped at the top again. So there's like a dozen posts about the Taggart terminal sentence. Justin, did you see he talked like yesterday? You just scroll up a bit, like here. I was talking with him last night. And like Ming Mecha already asked him similar questions to that. Anyway, yeah, I have several Ella posts unread, but she's actually, I responded to her most recently, and I was waiting for her to respond. Look for a post with Ella in them. You see, it's this. See, I was trying to explain like why it's hard to talk to her because we don't have like agreed upon premises, like uncontroversial shared knowledge that we can refer to during the discussion. And she said it makes sense so far, except like the concepts make sense. She agreed with the methodology. What she disagreed with is she thought that we had CR as a shared toolkit where we can just both refer to any CR stuff, the other person will understand it. And I think that's really wrong. We have never talked about CR. I've talked with lots of CR people, and their views vary. It's not like you talk to a CR person and they know standard stuff. Many of them have no idea what they're talking about, and even of the ones who know some stuff, they often know different parts of CR or have different takes on it. There's a lot of stuff where there's like more than one reasonable way of thinking about it, or I wouldn't say that's ridiculous or anything, but I wouldn't be able to predict in advance how someone will think about a particular CR topic. Like there's ambiguity in CR, especially at like a less detailed level. Like the more you like read every word Popper said and analyze everything, you can maybe come up with what is the best interpretation of this part of CR. Whereas if you just like read a few books, then there's like more reasonable interpretations of CR than if you had more details to interpret based on. It gets less ambiguous if you like really, really study it in depth, but I just wanted to put it in my pocket. But there was no like Discord integration with Pocket. Anyway, I got it now. Anyways, right. So I explained this, and then she just didn't reply. It's only been 3 days, but based on previous conversations, this seems like the kind of discussion she doesn't want to have, and also won't say, I don't want to have this discussion, here's why, here's what I think we should do instead. Like, she acknowledged that what I was saying was reasonable and important or whatever, but now she doesn't actually seem interested in talking about it. She's kind of trying to quickly dismiss the issue and move on, and pointing out that this way of dismissing and moving on like doesn't work at all. It's not actually reasonable. And right, I pointed out like if we agreed on CR and we both like knew the same things about it and thought about it the same way, so I could just say whatever I wanted about CR and she'd understand me, then she already would have addressed a bunch of CR issues. Because from my perspective, she failed to, in her comments on AGI, talk about a bunch of important CR stuff. She said she was basing it on CR, and then I saw like very little CR involved, and she didn't seem to be addressing a lot of the key issues. So to me, that means she does not view CR the same way I do. It's like differently organized in her mind. Not necessarily wrong, but at least different enough that I can't just talk about it my way and expect her to understand me. Anyways, it's really awkward to follow up with people like this. Like, they feel pressured often or get offended. They're like pushy. If you like wait a lot, sometimes they lose interest because it's been too long. So it's like really awkward to decide how quickly to follow up. It's like if you're dating someone and you're like, how long should I wait before I text them back? It's kind of similar where people there you don't have open communication, it makes it hard. But this person has expressed like hostility multiple times, so we definitely do not have like open communication. I can't just assume everything's fine or say whatever I want. Like you have to be careful with someone like that, or they're gonna get more mad. But they said something that was a blatant lie, and then I said it was a lie, and then they got offended, and they weren't like open and direct and honest about it, but they mentioned it later, in passing as something they were bitter about. The lie was they said like X was just Y, and it was like not even close to just as an exclusively or only Y. Actually, speaking of that, I have this I started responding to Justin's analysis of that conversation. And I in fact wrote here's the lie part right here. And it's right this highlight shot. Anyway, I thought it would be I just thought it would be worth mentioning in case you had somehow misunderstood his position. That is not the only singular reason, so that's just not true. And she easily could have known it was not true if she stopped to think about it, so that's lying. Uh, by the way, if that doesn't make sense to you, it's explained in this article. It explains what lying is. But anyway, she doesn't treat lying as something that can be analyzed, discussed, written an article about. At least not a philosophy article, maybe like a psychology article. But she doesn't see it as like a truth-seeking topic, which is really common. But she didn't, ask about it or say, hey, you just said something I think you shouldn't have said. It seems like you're doing something bad. Apparently we disagree on how to treat people, etc. She didn't raise the issue. Like, she raised some of the issues. She said, what am I lying about? But I gave her like a direct, literal answer, and she didn't. I think she still doesn't know what the lie is. But it was just, an initial answer. Anyways, and I gave some explanation. And then she started like not replying to everything I said and seemed kind of lost, but made it like really hard to talk to her. Like she wasn't like, I'm just lost, help, you know. Like, because right here, like she is guiding the conversation with a direct, short question. This doesn't give me a lot of freedom to help her in the ways I think are best. Like it's what she's asking for is to me to give her the exact answer she asked for, rather than on my own initiative to decide how to explain it to her. Um, so she didn't ask any open-ended questions or like free-form questions. Like, well, I mean, this one is somewhat, but it's a poor question. Like nothing made me say it. I could have not said it. I wasn't required to say it. I wasn't obligated. I wasn't forced into it. She's not thinking through her question. And the question is not thought through. Um, you look at her messages and you see capital letter to start sentence, capital letter to start sentence, capital letter to start sentence, and then down here, capital letter to start sentence. And then this question, that's thoughtless, you see lowercase letter to start sentence. People are so fucking transparent and they don't realize it. They do this kind of thing all the time, where their style changes depending on their emotional state, like visibly. This is not a random coincidence that the worst question is the one time where she lowercased her sentence. And here, this is this question where she seems mad, and now it's lowercase. This one, uppercase, uppercase, and it looks sort of like serious. I haven't even read it. But this one, are you going to answer the previous? Makes her sound mad, and now it starts with a lowercase. There's more uppercase. I mean, sometimes she uppercases when she's mad, too, I think. This one's lowercase. Is this? Oh, yeah. I just said this, and then she lowercased right after I said this. Look, I said this, and now she's mad, and lowercase is the next message. Actually, this one I think is a follow-up. I think this is a follow-up on the yes. She's like adding extra words because her message was incomplete, so she's rushing, so it's actually a different cause. I don't think it's a reaction to this. I think she was trying to correct herself. So she said yes, and then she wanted to add more or less so she would have wiggle room. She's like, shit, yes is false. Therefore, I'll say mostly yes. I'll update my answer. Anyways, a person who's like this and like they're following a bunch of conventional social rules and shit, and they're not, it's very hard to talk to them about what they're doing or what's going on. Like, it's like there's an elephant in the room. When you talk with normal people and you have like a conversation, like small talk or whatever, it's like there's an elephant in the room the whole time, to use that like metaphor and analogy or whatever. And no one's talking about it. Um, so it's like there are all these social dynamics which are happening and you're not allowed to talk about them openly or ask questions about them or clarify them or whatever. And that's really common and people are used to it, and I don't like it. And anyways, I have that kind of situation with her. It's very hard to talk about the social dynamics of what she's doing with me. And that also makes it hard to talk about like the fact that she just stopped replying at what seemed a very non-random point in the discussion, and she hasn't responded for 3 days. Now maybe she's busy for 3 days, but it's like it's hard to ask, it's hard to talk about it. And the longer I wait, the more she might just lose interest in the entire discussion. Because people are very short term with their interest in discussions, and like while it's loaded in their head and they have emotions about it, they're like interested. And then if it just sits and goes cold for like 3 days, frequently they forget a lot of it and they no longer feel any emotions about it to like excite them or interest them. And they lose their motivation and they don't create new motivation. So it's like already like a dangerous amount of time. I often just wait like over a week before I ask people about following up, and then it's just like they've lost all their emotional interest in it by then, and so they often never want to talk about it again. I don't know, so that's awkward. I don't know if anyone has like suggestions or solutions or whatever. Oh, similarly, Kieren has not gotten back to me. I made like that 5 hour stream where I talked about his stuff, and he wrote a brief reply where he said, I will reply more later, and that was like, I think over 2 weeks ago. And then I eventually wrote a reply and I was like, I'm just waiting on your follow up that you said you would do. I didn't say it quite like that. Like, I don't think I was unfriendly. The wording I just said verbally was it wasn't intended as unfriendly, but it could sound unfriendly. Like I heard it when I said it, why culturally it could sound unfriendly. Like it's literally neutral, but it has potential social between the lines meaning. Anyways, I think I said something neutral and he hasn't replied yet. So I'll just wait more. Um but yeah, I made like a 5 hour video talking about his stuff. And I'd like some sort of response to that. You know? So I'm hoping for that. Even if he hated the video, which is possible, like I said some things in it he might not like. I'd like that feedback that, I found parts X, Y, and Z terrible and I don't want to talk about them and I'm done with you. Even that much I would prefer over just silence and ambiguity, like no reaction. But also he might like parts of it. He might like all of it. I don't know. Like I thought it was good, so hopefully he should like it. But knowing people in general, a lot of people don't like certain good points, so I have a suspicion that he might not like it because it involves what you call unpleasant truths. I talked about some things that were negative and related to him, like criticism. A lot of people don't like criticism, so maybe he won't like it. And there was stuff in the ballpark of like beginner status and expertise and that stuff, and people got really offended about that stuff. But I tried to explain like what I actually meant so he wouldn't just be going by like stereotypes and wild guesses about what I might mean based on like conventional irrationality. So hopefully that I actually explained myself could like make it okay. But I have no idea how he'll take it. Sometimes people just yell at you and don't seem to pay attention to the details of what you said, so really could go either way. But hopefully some feedback. And I said a bunch of like on topic stuff about the discussion we're having too. Like I mean it's all on topic, but some of it's more directly on topic in some way. So there's that too, which he has not responded to. Alright, I guess I'll keep going through this response. So I guess I'm here, probably. The Justin's responses are fairly sparse. Like, there's not that many of them for the length of the for the length of the log. Right, seemed as like, in my impression or my judgment, it seemed to me, like based on the evidence I have or information I have, you can often say seemed when you're not hitting. Might is like, it might be false. I'm not going to take responsibility if this is false. Might is like maybe. Seemed is usually better than a maybe. Hopenager is Ella, by the way, same person. Ella H. She said that like on Discord or something, which is public, so yeah. I found out by incorrectly gendering her, and then she said like her, and then I switched. The whole topic was like very silly. I don't think she's actually trying to help me. Um, like I'd be perfectly happy to discuss mirror neurons. We could have a productive discussion about that. The topic she brought up was not how do mirror neurons work or what is the correct position about mirror neurons. The topic she brought up is like what side of a certain debate is DD on compared to Elliot. Like I don't think she was even clear on what the lines of the debate were. But yes, I'm like fully confident that DD and I actually have a disagreement about this. We've had multiple arguments about it. So yeah, we do disagree. But she didn't even know what were like the key issues in our argument, so she didn't even know what to ask about to get into where DD and I disagree and like what disagreements I was talking about. And she's done that before because she brought up Susan Blackmore. She thought that DD like approved of Susan Blackmore, and I know that he doesn't. And on top of that, there are a bunch of quotes in BOI indicating that he doesn't, which shows that her ability to like read the book and understand it is inadequate. And anyways, but she didn't ask about memes. Memes are like, the topic that Blackmore is related to. And she didn't want to discuss memes. She only wanted to discuss what is Dee Dee's opinion of Susan Blackmore, not what is the correct position on memes, or what is the correct position on, some idea that Susan Blackmore had talked about. Like, why is a particular idea of hers right or wrong? She didn't want to discuss any of that. She only wanted to discuss what does this person think of that person. And she was doing the same sort of thing here, where she only wanted to discuss what does, like, the clash between me and Dee Dee's ideas rather than the actual topic of mirror neurons. So it's like overly meta and about people. I found that weird. And there are a lot of other signs in what she writes that she's not that type of person at all and just wants to focus on the issues, not discuss methodology, not discuss people, not discuss personal traits, not have meta discussion. But then, like, multiple of her topic choices were about people instead of, like, the issue related to the person. Like Blackmore instead of memes, or Dee Dee's position on mirror neurons instead of mirror neurons. I don't know what's going on there. One of the things about this message is, it has I agree with this view, and it has this view of a position on mirror neurons. This actually gets into the main issue being what's true about mirror neurons. And so the question is, like, is there a contradiction? How do I learn more about mirror neurons? Like, the thing that's trying to happen here is, based on what Elliot said, it seems like maybe there's some sort of disagreement about mirror neurons. Maybe my position about mirror neurons has a known flaw or a thing that Elliot disagrees with, so I'd like more info. Like, the issue there is trying to get information to learn about mirror neurons, not trying to catch Elliot out and making a misstatement about Dee Dee's views. Which is, I don't know, if you're going to play the odds, you should try something else if you're going to try to catch me in a misstatement. Not what are Dee Dee's views is. Because I had a million conversations with him, so I'm very familiar with a lot of his opinions. So this is this yes, by the way, I think was unexpected. This is like new information. Like, she thought that she had presented how to discuss rationally, and I would agree with it, and I could see that she knows what she's talking about. However, I actually disagreed with it. At this point, she should become very curious. This person, who's like a philosopher who writes about reason and so on, disagrees with her view of rationality and how to converse and stuff. So she ought to be very interested that there's like a different viewpoint that she didn't know about and she can learn about. But she's not at all. Well, that's an exaggeration. But she's a little interested maybe, but I think she's not really. Anyways, here she starts getting it's like super fucking sloppy. I don't know. Like, she's decent at being logical and precise, but then she makes like huge errors. Anyway, here I asked like a very direct, blatant question. She did not think about it before answering. She didn't think this through. She didn't think, okay, what did my methodology say? What was step one? Did I do step one? What was step two? Did I do, and nothing like that. But her methodology, if you read it, says when X, then do Y. And then she says she was doing it. And it's like, okay, was condition X applicable? And if it was, did I do Y? She didn't actually check whether she did it. She just said yes. I don't understand why Justin put this yes with a capital, because what I said was yes with a lowercase. I don't know why you'd like capitalize my word in the middle of your sentence. It's not like capitalizing the start of a sentence. Sometimes when you quote something at the start of a sentence, you like capitalize it. Or if you quote it in the middle, you uncapitalize it to match your own sentence. But this isn't that. This is like capitalizing my lowercase in the middle of Justin's sentence. It's kind of odd. I wonder if it's because he saw this yes with the capital and he was like copying her yes. But mine was lowercase, so that's weird. Or even trying to catch me being wrong on like epistemology, like, do I have the issue wrong would make more sense. Like, you could debate me about Popper, maybe. Like, you could try it. Um, and you'd have a better shot at that than debating me about what are DD's opinions. Like, because you're, I'm an expert at, how does epistemology work? How does critical rationalism work? What's true in the field? But you can debate an expert and maybe you'll win. And you have like a fair shot at winning because you too can study epistemology and analyze the field and know stuff about it. However, if you try to debate me about what DD's opinions are, there's a huge information asymmetry in terms of access to information. Like, I've literally had many, many private conversations with him, so I just have a bunch more information to go on that you couldn't access even if you wanted to. You couldn't study it. You're just at this huge disadvantage. Even setting aside my expertise, it's still like an unfair thing. Like, very similar to, you go up to someone and you say to them, like, I think your spouse disagrees with you about X. And you're like, what are you talking about? I've talked with my spouse about that. We're fine. And like, I've talked with Dee Dee more than plenty of spouses have ever talked with each other. This is like hard to follow. It's like such a mess. And it's because of her writing choices. Like, you stated that which one of my ideas are wrong? Which idea? Why don't you quote it? Which clearly contradicts one of my ideas. This sounds like she's admitting she did not follow the methodology. Yeah, she's just admitting that she did not follow them. So she fucking knows if she stops to think for 1 second, or maybe like 10 seconds, I don't know, but she can figure out on her own that she didn't follow the methodology, and yet she said yes, she did. Um, because she wanted this to be the answer. She wanted the answer to be she followed her own methodology. She did not. Her methodology as written is extremely incomplete. There's flaws in the part she wrote, but the biggest flaw is that it just leaves out most of how to have a rational discussion. It just says, in this situation, do this. And I was like, that's not a methodology for a rational discussion. That is like one tiny piece of the puzzle. It's not an overview. It's not a summary. It's not like she just left out all the details. It's like she picked a random detail and left out the high level stuff. Also, the specific thing she was talking about is very focused on like trying to find stuff where you think someone's wrong and then arguing with them. And that's a great thing to do like half the time. Like, there's definitely value in that. But the things she was not doing was talking about what are her goals, what does she want to learn, what is something she would like help with. Um, and then she was not finding enough positive value in our conversations because she never said any positive goals. She never introduced into the conversation some value she wanted to attain that she could then get from the conversation. She just picked things to argue about without really considering, is this important? Do I really want a correction on this issue? What's the positive value that I want to get out of this? Like, she's leaving that as implied as, when someone says something that contradicts one of my, well, is it an important idea? Is it one that you're actively wanting to prioritize learning about? And then when you do this, like, this is unclear to the other person what's going on. I explained the idea that I had and where it contradicted what they said. First of all, she never really did this. She never really explained her view on the matter. Like, her initial comments were very like brief and unclear. And also, she picked like an unimportant topic, not mirror neurons, but Dee Dee's position on them. And also, if you explain this is my idea and this contradicts this, you're not actually, there's no call to action. There's not. So it would make more sense if you said, so I think we disagree, which means at least one of us is wrong, which means at least one of us could learn something. So do you want to discuss it? Something like that. Like, there's no, what is the purpose of doing this? She left out. Like, the actual thing she wants, apparently, is to do AGI research. So some of the conversations she started are not actually going to help her with that. Like, if it turns out she was wrong about Dee Dee's position on Susan Blackmore or mirror neurons, that's not going to help her do AI research. It's not going to help her understand how do memes work, or should my AGI have mirror neurons? This is very relevant because later she complained that she wasn't getting enough value out of the discussion. But she never said what she wanted. So of course she didn't get it. Well, she wasn't actually trying to discuss mirror neurons. I don't know if that was like she just said something that was different than what she meant and she wanted to discuss mirror neurons or not. Because like she's sloppy enough to bring up an issue about who contradicted who when she actually wanted to talk about what's true about mirror neurons. But she also just might have meant it that way. With the Blackmore stuff, she was like satisfied and just done and didn't want to talk about it further. Like, she did not want to discuss memes. It was only actually about Blackmore and Dee Dee's opinion of Blackmore. She later said she dropped that discussion because people hadn't read the book. So she wouldn't even give them a chance to say anything about memes and see if they had any replies. And I pointed out that was unreasonable, and then she had no interest in following up and discussing it. And furthermore, people have read that book. It was just me who hadn't read it. But I'm certainly capable of responding to many meme-related issues without having read that book, or responding to quotes from the book, or skimming a section of the book and responding or whatever. Like, she sought out personal information about me, whether I'd read a particular book, then made bad assumptions about my discussion capabilities based on what she thought was relevant personal information, which wasn't. So she created a meta discussion and then misused it, and then was not open to error correction about it, and destroyed the discussion by doing that. Yeah, this is so like begrudging. Like, do they not realize how they're coming across? As like, I don't really want to concede and I don't really agree with what you're saying, but as a logical point, I'm like being forced to concede, but I'm going to minimize the concession and not really, take what you're saying and run with it and try to correct all my ideas. I'm just going to say, okay, you're right on this tiny point, but I'm going to isolate it. I'm not going to let it affect anything else. Right. Well, why is she here? Like, she never told us why she's here. If she had just come and said, hi, this is my background, this is what I want, then discussions could be related to that, but she never did that. And then she's complaining there's no value when she never said what value she was hoping to get here in the first place. So that's like really unfair. Right, I wasn't being so hostile. Is there a quote of me being hostile? Like, what is she talking about? Right, and she was just complaining that I was overly literal, but she keeps making errors. Like, she said, since talking to me is apparently quite different from talking to any other person. And that's not true. Talking to me is kind of similar to talking to Justin, for example, or talking to David Deutsch, for example. she wrote it in a way that makes it false, and she was exaggerating in a adversarial or hostile manner. It was not a random exaggeration or a random error. So she's hostile, I'm not, though. I think it was immediately. Called out is not really what happened. Like, I don't know, I'd say criticized. Or I brought up the issue. I asked questions about it. I wasn't trying to call her out. Calling out is like a social activity. I wasn't trying for like public embarrassment or ridicule or something. Calling out is what you got from like WWE wrestlers or something, where they're like, I'm calling you out, Hulk Hogan. You better fight me next weekend unless you're too much of a pussy. The word loosey goosey is itself kind of loosey goosey. I think that's ironic. I don't like the term very much. Well, the type of effort she needs to put in is learning how to be precise and literal and careful and stuff, which is worthwhile whether she's talking to me or not. Like it's general purpose skills. It wasn't like parochial stuff about me personally. And I think that she kind of knew that and wasn't being very honest. This comes up all the time where people are like, "You were hostile," and I'm like, "What was hostile?" And and then they'll quote something. Sometimes they won't even quote, but sometimes they do quote. And then you have to say, "Okay, what is your objection to that quote?" Because they don't give any explanation. They think it speaks for itself. And then they give more examples instead of answering what was their objection to this message. And I have to say, "Okay, what's your objection to those?" And then I also point out you interpreted those things as hostile and didn't say so and didn't try to do any problem solving. Got progressively more hostile as a result. Like so she was sabotaging the discussion. She got upset earlier, did not say so, did not try to deal with the problem. Then she tried to act like nothing was wrong, which is lying by implication. And it implied that she was okay with what I said. If she had told me that she gets offended easily, that she's conventional in that way, then maybe I would have been careful not to say things that she would find offensive. Like if she told me I'm from a certain subculture, we don't talk that way, like I can't deal with it, then I could try to remember to avoid saying those things to her. But instead, she acted like everything was fine, so I kept doing more of the same things she had not objected to. And then she got progressively more and more upset by it. Okay. So when I finally got her to try to say what is her objection to one of the messages. And she says it is blatant mockery. Much more rude and hostile than anything I'd said before. Okay, so she's claiming that this quote is blatant mockery, very rude and hostile. And then I asked her the question, can you come up with any interpretation there where that quote has a productive purpose or makes literal sense? And then she says, which quote? Um, which she does not have the discussion skills to have this conversation if she can't figure out what quote I'm talking about. Like, she just gave a quote and criticized it, and then I asked a question about that quote that she had just given, the most recent one. She says, which quote? This is like a really bad sign. If I did not mean the most recent quote, I would have specified. Like, it would be ambiguous or like way too unclear if I wasn't talking about this quote. There's no other quote I could talk about where my sentence would be okay. Therefore, I meant this one. But she doesn't know that. Anyways, I just told her which quote, and she said, I'm not even sure I understand the question. The purpose is to mock what it... Like, she's so blind. And like, could this quote have a productive purpose? Could it be anything other than mocking? And she's like, I don't understand. The purpose was mocking. And then I say, can you come up with any other interpretation or purpose? And then she comes up with one. And it's like, okay, well, that is a purpose, which is not... The goal there is not mocking, rudeness, or hostility. That is something completely different and actually productive and legitimate. And I didn't have to explain that to her. She's perfectly capable of understanding there was a fair interpretation of what I said where it was like productive and trying to make the conversation better. You know, I didn't say it in the most polite way. Like, you could call it a bit rude. That's debatable. But calling it hostile, I think, is unfair. My goal when I made that statement was to communicate something productive. So did I communicate in a rude way? Arguably. Did I communicate in a hostile way? No, I was trying to help. I was trying to make things better. Not trying to hurt her. I was not being adversarial. I was trying to be critical and point things out and explain things. And so it was not hostile. And the goal was not mockery. The goal was to communicate a useful point. I did not know that she wanted me to be like really polite. And there's a reason that I phrased it in a colloquial way. Like, I thought that was relevant information. Like, I think she did not realize how absurd she was being, and so I was revealing, this is what you sound like, this is what it looks like. And now you can see that as mockery because she was being ridiculous, and then I correctly characterized what she was being like, so it looks like mockery. But I was going for accuracy. And I was going for, instead of like pretending we're in an ivory tower and we have no emotions and no social dynamics, I was going for, let's make this like a realistic statement of what people actually think and talk like, that I think is going on. Like, I was going for real world accuracy. I was trying to make it more concrete and more related to her actual situation. So that's why I put it in like a colloquial phrasing. I was trying to dispel the thing she was doing where she was pretending to be a dispassionate academic, because I didn't think she was being a dispassionate academic, so I didn't want to write it in that kind of style. Like, a lot of what I write is my own messages, and so they are in that kind of style, and it helps her with the charade, the fraud, the pretense that we're having this back and forth dispassionate academic scholarly discussion, which is not really what was happening. Like, she was apparently getting offended and shit. But anyways, to some extent, like, I play into that pretext because I'm that kind of person, so I write that way. Like, I'm not consistently that kind of person, but I can be, and I do it sometimes. Anyways, but I didn't think she was being that kind of person. So I wanted, when I was characterizing what she was doing, which I thought was like ridiculous, and she was being ridiculous, but she wasn't getting what the problem was, so I was trying to explain it. I was trying to make it clearer to her what was wrong, what was the problem. So I tried to do it in a colloquial way that matched the actual thing, like, rather than in a misleading way where it was like super literal and ivory towery. Right. Okay. Right. So she came up with an interpretation where I was trying to make things better, not being hostile. So I said, why assume hostility when you can think of a non-hostile reason I would say it? Because that interpretation doesn't mean you weren't being hostile. You could have accomplished the same thing in a non-hostile way by saying, from my perspective, your previous message sounds like I didn't realize I was supposed to make true statements. Okay, first of all, if you say it like this could easily be read as hostile, mocking, and rude. This could easily be read as making fun of someone. It seems to be highlighting, and it's like it's a little bit of an understated approach, but you can absolutely ridicule people with understatement. Like, I didn't realize I was supposed to make true statements sounds like a fucking retarded thing to say. I don't see that as any less retarded than the thing I characterized her as saying. I think she was actually being retarded. Like, I'm not trying to attack her or insult her, but her position on the matter was dumb, and I didn't think she saw it through, and she wasn't getting it, and I tried to make it clearer to her. And I think I succeeded to some extent. Like, the fact that she interpreted it as mocking meant she realized that one, it had something to do with her, and two, it was dumb. So she was seeing how dumb she was being, so she felt bad. So she thought I was attacking her because I revealed to her her flaws, and then she felt bad. So that seemed like an attack. Like, that's what happened. And this same thing would have happened with this message. It would have revealed her flaw to her, and she would have felt bad. And it's not like this is polite. This is not at all polite. This is... How can you characterize someone as saying, I didn't realize I was supposed to make true statements? That just sounds passive-aggressive, like you're trying to imply they're a retard. But you don't want to quite come out and say it. Like, mine was more blunt and open and honest, which I thought was, like, less aggro. Like, this one is trying to say it like that's her serious, considered position, which would make her, like, actually stupid. Mine was like, that's not really her position. I want her to see how dumb that is. I know she'll agree with me that that's dumb. Like, I'm trying to say that the thing she's saying is similar to this dumb thing. Whereas this is saying it like she really means that. In a way. Like, it gives a seriousness to her bad ideas that I thought was, like, unfair. Like, this is so fucking mocking. If someone said this to me, like, I could easily think they were mocking me. So she's like, she's complaining about, like, social implications, but she's really bad at them. Or she's really biased, one of those. Anyways, so then I asked this other question. Had you communicated the... No. I meant this as an alternative. Like, she clearly had communicated information regarding the thickness of her skin. So this was supposed to be, like, pick one. And she went with no. Or at least not intentionally. Well, the question was not, did you intentionally communicate information? Anyways, she had heavily communicated thick skin. So I said something with a productive purpose to a person who communicated they had a thick skin. I did not expect them to get super upset. But the problem was she was lying to me and had a thin skin. Right, so now she's saying I should have been extra careful. But she had previously communicated to me repeatedly that I didn't need to be extra careful. Which I had already explained to her a minute ago. Oh yeah, this is a fucking lie. Justin finally comments. There's so much stuff Justin didn't comment on. I've just been talking for a while. Anyways, this one was fucking ridiculous, so I'm glad Justin decided to comment here. But, like, if she's still here, that doesn't mean I was careful enough. She's, like, offended. Like, she would have preferred if I was more careful. The bar for her just, like, quitting the Discord server and the bar for having been careful enough are totally different things. Like, you can get a bad result shy of quits the Discord server, but it's still a bad result. So this is not thoughtful. She's so tilted. Like, she's not this bad at logic at all times. She's tilted. It's an emotional problem. And she won't admit it, which makes it harder to deal with. God, fucking the rat guy. He's like yelling at Anon, I'm a Virgo, what else you got, bitch? And then he's like, I'm not mad, what are you talking about? And then, like, an hour later, he's like, okay, now I'm mad, I'm gonna take a break to calm down. And it's like, bro, the time you were mad and the time you noticed you were mad are not the same time. Like that, you're very silly. Your ability to recognize your anger while you're angry is not very good. So, it has to be, like, really, really angry before you notice. Right, her extra careful communication was, like, not careful at all, by the way. But anyways, the overall theme of what she meant is I should be more careful. However, her messages had never said, I'm fragile, I have a thin skin, be careful with me, you know? She communicated the opposite by pretending everything was fine. Oh, comments in the main Discord. Retarded is too mean to call someone? No, retarded is a synonym for idiot. or dumb? DD is David Deutsch. He is a philosopher and physicist, and he wrote books. Also, with retarded, or idiot or whatever, like the thing I think is worth saying sometimes is that certain statements or opinions or whatever are idiotic or retarded. Like, rather than the person himself, like inherently, it's not the person is retarded. It's like that action they took was pretty retarded. They thought it through. They could have known better. Like people do dumb shit sometimes, and they know it's dumb in retrospect, and so it's like fair to call it that. Some of the things Hopenager said were dumb by current cultural standards, and by her own standards, she's better than that at other times. And also, that was more of like a tangent or an aside. But I think it matters when people are like egregiously dumb or bad or something, as opposed to just like I made a mistake. Like there's a difference between I made a mistake and I said something that was like ridiculously stupid. Like the ridiculously stupid one has like a cause, and the cause matters. If they just make a mistake like a regular mistake, it's like okay, mistakes happen, no big deal. But if they say something that's like ridiculously stupid and way dumber than they usually are, it's like okay, are you being emotional? Like, are you super rushed? Something's going on there. So it's actually relevant information to how to reply to it. If someone's being like extra super dumb, you don't just reply normally as if it was any old mistake, because there's something bigger going on. And yeah, my goal was not to mock her, it was to show her what she was being like. It felt like mocking because she was being dumb in that particular way. But my goal was not mocking, it was just like clarity about what she was being like. I thought if I gave her a perspective on what she was being like so she could see for herself from like sort of an outside perspective how she sounded, then she would understand better why she was mistaken. Things like that could be cleared up if she wanted to, if she said what the problem was or objected to them or whatever. Like I can explain them more if someone objects to them. The thing she did was like objecting to a bunch of stuff in her head but not telling me. So then I said more of it, and then she got like more upset. Um, Whereas like I appreciate comments like this. Retarded is too mean to call someone. Like that is an opinion people have. I'm aware people have that opinion. I don't agree with it, but you're welcome to have that opinion. If I remember, I won't call you retarded. I might forget. I admit it, um, but like this just tells me you disagree with me, and that's fine. We can disagree, and we can talk about it, or we can just keep disagreeing. We don't have to like discuss everything. That's fine. But if you don't tell me you have a problem with what I'm saying, I'm just gonna keep saying it, and we're never gonna do anything about the problem, like solve the problem or quarantine the problem and avoid it or whatever. Just like being aware of a problem, of a point of disagreement, you can often just like act in a way where it doesn't matter to what you're doing, like sort of go around the problem, or you can solve it. But if you hide problems, then people will just like walk right into them unnecessarily and cause more of the same problem. So that's what she was doing, and a lot of people do that. Like the see, it started earlier when I said she was lying. She did not respond. She should have, but lying is too mean to call someone. You know, if she said something like that, the discussion would have gone much better. It'd be like, oh, I think that whether or not a statement is a lie is like important information that can be rationally analyzed. here's my article on lying. I think people lie all the time, and that criticism of one's lies is really important to becoming a more honest person. And it's hard to catch all your own lies. It's really helpful if other people can catch some of your lies. And I can show you how I analyzed that this particular one was a lie. And, I could have explained all that to her, but she did not tell me that she thought lying is too mean to call someone, so I didn't explain why it's not, or how I see it. She just brought it up later, at a later date, that she was still, like, resentful about that older thing that she hadn't objected to at the time. People are like that, but it's really hard to deal with, where they won't say to your face what the problem is. They just want you to, like, avoid all the problems in the first place instead of doing problem solving. Whereas I'm more oriented towards problem solving rather than avoiding problems in the first place. And there are philosophical, theoretical reasons about why that's important. They are, in fact, part of critical rationalism. And critical rationalism is something she claims to know about. And I responded that I think maybe her understanding of it doesn't match mine, so I can't just assume she thinks about it how I do. And then she hasn't responded to that yet, but that's what I was talking about earlier. Yes, these are different things. Agree. Her logic level on this one is really bad for her because she's capable of much better than this. It's pretty bad by normal standards too. Yeah, if people like say they have a problem with something, we might have irreconcilable differences. And if we do, it's good to just find out. And I can be like, oh no, I think that's good. And you're like, no, I think it's really bad. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna agree to disagree and go our separate ways or whatever. But a lot of the times we can just agree to disagree and try to avoid the problem. Or a lot of times, like I can explain and there's like a misunderstanding or something. Or at least like it helps a lot if I explain my reasoning. Even if you don't agree with it, you can see that I have like, some attempt at reasoning that's kind of reasonable, and it's like there's a point to it. It's not just malice or something. So even if you still think I'm wrong, you can like respect the thought process. Is like reasonable enough not to be offended by, even if you don't think it's like the best opinion. So like if you see more of where someone's coming from, even if you still disagree with them, you can mind it a lot less. That's a common thing. Indeed. Yes, this is not a very advanced point. Yup. By the way, she like hasn't talked in chat basically since this conflict. So while she did not actually quit the server, she hasn't been talking to us. I mean, she did start the FI thread, but she's gone silent in that one for the moment. Yeah. It's such an emotion thing, because I swear to God, if someone else did this and she was dispassionately analyzing it, she's good enough at logic to like catch this problem. I'm not like 100% sure, but I think she is. Like I've read her posts, and she's like way more logical than most people. Like she's decent at it overall, Even though there's like these egregious errors sometimes. Like she gets a fair amount of stuff right. So it's sad that she's so adversarial and doesn't seem to be finding a way to cooperate with us. And then she's gonna like spend her career doing AGI research that never gets anywhere because she won't have critical discussions with us. She didn't realize that I would customize what I said at all to her and would like react at all to what she said or did not say. Look, I pointed out that does not follow. Doesn't it? Wait, she's fucking doubling down on that? So there's things that can be bad other than whatever. Justin already covered it. It's not that hard. Right, I didn't use a level of hostility based on my evaluation of her thick skin. I used a level of, I don't know, caution? Like, it's not that I was hostile, I just wasn't, being careful. I wasn't, like, going out of my way to be polite. I didn't know that it was necessary. And I don't like to do it, so I avoid it in general. I saved that thing in question, by the way. I might use it for something. It's like it was a short practical intro. Did I even mention workout routines like once in what I said? Let's see. Oh, well, I sort of mentioned it here because I say it's an area where lots of people already have ideas. I'm like, there are areas where you don't check what people have already written about it because there's like nothing. But for workout routines or like diets or a variety of other, there's plenty of advice already out there. So you want to review it, and maybe some of it'll help. Anyway, yeah, it was very, very general purpose what I wrote. No, I figured that I didn't need to be extra careful not to be rude. What the fuck is this? Of course not? Yeah, of course not what? Wait, I told her why her thing was illogical. She agreed with me and then couldn't figure out. What the fuck? If you had been more hostile than I could handle, I wouldn't be engaging more. That means she could handle it there. She said she handled it successfully. What the fuck? This is so incoherent. She's so tilted. She's not this dumb. Like, this is tilt. It's just being so ridiculous. Yeah. I don't think she's gonna like this one. See, this is a good sum up though. Given the situation, what can happen next? I no longer stand by that. Which message does she no longer stand by? Is she retracting something? Which one is she retracting? I disagree. She still thinks I'm hostile. She's not retracting that. This is true, but it's not, she's not gonna like it. Yeah, this is true and important. If you're incompetent, you can have an opinion that you're incompetent, and you can have like a very tentative opinion, but it's different than having the opinion she did have, which was not suitable for an incompetent person. Yeah, so Justin, correct, good catch. Right, having some sort of ideas when uninformed is necessary, but you don't have to have the particular ones you had where you have come to a conclusion and you're actually going to hold it against someone because you think they're hostile. You shouldn't be concluding negative things about people when you don't know what you're talking about. You could have the opinion that like you don't know much and it seems maybe negative to you, but you want to like learn to analyze it correctly, but you don't want to actually reach the conclusion that you're gonna um, form a negative opinion of a person based on your own don't know what you're talking about. So this was like I thought maybe I'd get through to her on this. It's like she clearly doesn't have paths forward. She doesn't have a concept of what would change her mind. If she's wrong, how will she change her mind? She doesn't know. So that's like an important thing about rationality that I thought would interest her. And she asked a few questions about it, but actually she's not interested and didn't follow up on it. I explained a bunch of stuff about it to her later in answer to her question, and then she said she didn't value the response. But it was a correct response to her question. So if she doesn't value the response, that's her fault for asking a question that she didn't actually care about the answer to. That was a thing that happened a little after this. That was sad. Anyways, I don't think she wants to discuss this or analyze it or figure out what happened or anything. Anyway, I talked. There we go. Alright, so almost 3 hours. I think I might be done soon. Still got 33 emails. I think more than half are grammar, but there's still some other stuff too. Well, there's like the like 4 AGI one. Most of them are grammar actually. There's this liberalism. Oh yeah, I want to read this. And there is Alan wrote this thing which I need to read. I think that's a good one. Almost everything else is grammar plus the couple AGIs though. Yeah, is there anything else besides grammar and AG? Oh, Justin links and comments. There's those two. One of the things with her AGI algorithm is she didn't say what problem it was trying to solve. Like, what does she find deficient with current ideas about AGI algorithms? And then how does hers solve some problem that, how is hers better than other ones? What features was she going for to make it better? Like, it's unclear to me what she was trying to improve by what means. It just seemed like she just sort of picked some random ideas about how maybe we make an AGI. Well, it wasn't clear like why those ideas, and whereas if it was like, there's this previous idea about an AGI, this was the criticism of it. So I've made this part of an AGI work in this particular way, so it won't be refuted by that criticism. Then I would see where her design choices were coming from, but she didn't really explain that stuff, so it made it hard to talk to her about it. Because a lot of what she did just seemed arbitrary and not very good, but it wasn't explained, so it's hard to discuss like where she went wrong, or maybe she's right, but she didn't explain it, so I don't get it. So it's hard to discuss. But I encouraged her to like explain more how she thinks what she said has to do with CR, but she didn't seem interested in doing that. She also like it seemed she said she agreed that she should discuss CR more, but she hasn't done that, and I think she sort of doesn't want to, but won't say why. So she has a problem with what I'm saying, but she claims to agree with it, but she doesn't act like she agrees with it. People do that a lot, where they like claim they're agreeing with you, but then they don't act like it. You're like, something's going on here, like this is fishy. That's hard to deal with, where they won't admit what they disagree about. I gotta pee. BRB. Hello. It's there are comments in the main Discord. Um, I used to do this a lot, and Alyssa pointed out the error to me repeatedly, and I stopped doing it much. But yeah, the apostrophe S means is or has, but not are. So it's like technically wrong to use it before a plural. I might be ending the stream after I finish reading this email. So if you want to ask any question, you only have like 10 minutes left or something. But if if people have questions, I can stay longer and talk. Right, the second loan is much less risky because with the 50K down payment, they only have to be able to sell the house for 150,000 to get their money back. The house can drop in value from 200,000 to 150,000, and even if the guy stopped paying, they get their money back. And on top of that, right, he has savings. He's probably going to pay for a while. Like once he's made some payments, then they only have to sell the house for 120,000 or whatever to get their money back. So it's hard for the value of the house to fall far enough for them to lose money. And even if they do lose money, it'd probably only be a little bit. On the other hand, with this other one, it's pretty easy for the house to fall more than $6,000 in value. So they could pretty quickly be dealing with a house where the loan on the house is more valuable than the house. Which means if the guy stops paying, they're going to lose money. This is fucking terrible, but this is all so egregious. The government fucks up stuff so badly. It's retarded. Yeah, I like to use words like retarded for that kind of thing because I think a really strong word is merited. If you just say it's bad, like there's a lot of things that are bad. Pineapple on pizza is bad. This qualifies for like a, harsher, stronger words. Like I want to differentiate it from bad things. This is like very, very, very bad, except Very, very, very bad sounds dumb, and we have other words for that, like retarded. There are certainly less offensive ways to do it, like there are other choices. Some people are like really offended by the word retard. I just don't really care. I don't like word policing and like speech restrictions. I think I'm a little rebellious when people try to tell me what to do. So like it's not a big deal. I don't go out of my way to cause a problem, but that's like part of why I haven't bothered to change my speech. I don't really want to pander to people who get very offended by taboo words. Like I don't value or respect the taboos. I think that the concept of like mental retardation and mental illness in general, all that stuff is like really confused and people are wrong about it. But I think the word retard is it's more of a synonym for idiot than actually related to psychiatry issues. In the same way that dumb is more of a synonym for idiot than actually meaning anything about muteness. Like I think the origin of the word retarded is not very relevant. I don't think when I call it retarded, anyone actually thinks I mean like it has an IQ under 75 or some sort of technical definition. Which is certainly not what I mean or have in mind. It's just like a particularly strong, like kind of offensive way to say something. Um, the point being like the strength of it. Like it has good emphasis because it offends people. Another thing is if people are offended, like really offended, like unsolvable problem from words like that, we're not gonna get anywhere with concepts. Like if I think they're a bad parent, that's way more offensive. Someone who like can't even deal with different linguistic conventions is not going to be able to deal with something more substantially offensive, like disapproving of their parenting. I also like the casualness of a bit of profanity and some like informal words. I don't want to sound like a stuck-up professor who lives in an ivory tower and can't talk like a normal person. I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to be that kind of person. I think that's bad. I think they're like pretentious and they're trying to sound impressive by word choices. I think they try to use their impressive facade to make up for the lack of substance. Whereas I will say important ideas with casual language, whereas they'll say empty ideas with really fancy language and try to hide the emptiness. Oh god, I have not been watching the dumb debates. I don't know that I want to actually watch one. I certainly don't want to watch one at 1x speed, so if I was going to do it, I could do it like shortly after it happened and watch it at like 2x, but I couldn't do it live. There's no way I'm putting up with that at 1x. It would also be hard because I've been following politics so little that I think I wouldn't know like some of the references and issues and stuff. Yeah, well, thanks for volunteering me. Why don't you make a video on one of them? I'm sure you'd have enough criticism. I think you're clever enough to outthink the Democrat stage people and come up with some things they did wrong. So it doesn't require my expertise to handle this one. So stop volunteering me and volunteer yourself. By the way, Andy called it ridiculous. Like, he was using strong words too. He didn't want to, like, pretend this was, like, a normal thing where it's just like, oh, they made a little of a mistake. It's like, this merits some strong language. Ridiculous is a good word. I use the word ridiculous some. I don't say retarded, like, terribly often. Oh, they're trying to avoid them, like, getting a biased or crooked appraiser. So they just made a bunch of regulations that jack up the price and probably don't really solve the problem that well. I get this makes total sense, and that really fucking sucks. This also is fucking terrible. Well, that sucks. Hey, we got a strong word here. There's agreement on the level of word strength merited by these policies. I try to be, like, accurate instead of just sort of pretend everything is, like, calm and fine and whatever. This is really hurting, like, millions of people's lives in a large way. Yeah, what the fuck? Right, right. Well, that all made sense. Alright, I think it's time to eat. Later, guys.